All right. Hello and welcome to SYN127. We're going to talk. Is that everybody? Probably. Okay, going over here. Sorry about that. SYN127, we're going to talk about how we're bringing Okta and Citrix together in the workspace. So my name is Daniel Lahamadou. I'm a Director of Product Management for the Citrix Cloud team, and I focus on our Citrix Cloud platform, which includes our identity platform. And I'm joined today by Brian Smoltz, who's Senior Director of Business Development at Okta. So really excited about our collaboration and partnership with Okta. And Brian, thanks a lot for joining us here at Synergy. So we got a pretty simple agenda today. We're going to talk about apps. And it's probably no surprise, Citrix loves to talk about apps. But we're going to talk a lot about SaaS apps today and how we're going to bring these apps together into the workspace. And of course, with our partners at Okta, we're going to talk about identity and how we can leverage some of the Okta Identity Cloud with Citrix Cloud in the workspace. We'll talk about how it's all coming together in the workspace and some of the cool things that we're doing with the workspace and why that's relevant moving forward. And then, we'll open it up for Q&A and just have some brief discussion about kind of what's next as we tackle the next frontier of the digital workspace. So thanks again for joining and coming to the session. So in flight, there's a concept of the point of no return, or a tipping point where when you're on your journey, on your way to your destination, you hit a point where you can't go back to your origin. There's just no path there, you're out of fuel. And so you have no point but to push forward towards your original destination and your goal, or to pivot and find some other place to land. And I think in this industry, we're long past the point of no return in cloud computing. And so it got reinforced at the keynote with Google and Microsoft on stage talking about how virtually every Fortune 500 company is leveraging public cloud in some way. And I think most of us in this room have some experience with public cloud and are leveraging that with our technology estates today. And so we've flown past that point of no return with cloud. I think another point of no return that we've gone past is SaaS. And so SaaS is out here in the workspace. It's in the workplace. It's in our personal lives with cloud services. And every day we're interacting with cloud services and SaaS services, whether it's in the business world, in the workplace, or in our daily lives. And when I think about these kind of tipping points in this journey in the cloud, one thing I'm really proud of, and I think Citrix got right from the beginning with our cloud strategy, is a strategy built around customer choice. And since the beginning of Citrix Cloud, we've always had a strategy around customer choice. And so as we're on this journey together, you have the choice to fly your plane towards any of these clouds, and if one of them's not working out, you can land in a different one. And so that's something that has been part of our strategy from the beginning. And it's been working out really well because kind of cloud lock-in and the flexibility to go to the cloud of your choice is definitely something that's relevant and in the conversation today. I think another tipping point that's relevant in this conversation is the Citrix strategy. And so Citrix is past our point of no return with our cloud strategy and our commitment to be a cloud services company. So about 5 years ago, we started Citrix Cloud. And I'm proud to have been one of the founding members on that team. And we've approached everything since then with a cloud-first mindset. And hopefully over the years, you've seen our deep commitment to evolving and approaching these technology problems and use cases with a cloud-first approach. And so here we are. We're on the journey to the cloud together. And Brian and I are going to talk today about how a partnership between Okta and Citrix is going to provide our customers and our partners the most flexibility and agility on that journey to get to their destination or to pivot and land somewhere safely where they're comfortable. And so before we go into that detail, I wanted to just take a minute to look back about how we got here and how we arrived at Synergy with a session about bringing Okta and Citrix together in the workspace. And I really think that it started with the proliferation of SaaS in the workplace. And so SaaS was kind of a grassroots thing. We saw SaaS applications popping up a long time ago. A lot of them were addressing niche use cases. They started to go into departmental use cases. Maybe a small team, like an event planning team, would use a SaaS app, and the 10 or 20 of them would log in with their email. And it was fine. It was manageable, and it was efficient for them. They could pay out of their departmental budget, and that was okay. And then more and more SaaS apps started to come online, and big juggernauts and major players like Salesforce landed. And it really broke the mold. And once we had those type of SaaS applications coming into the workplace and the enterprise, they were changing the way companies did business. They were changing the daily work habits of users. And it was changing a lot of the requirements. It broke the mold for enterprise IT and identity on how to govern the access and security to these SaaS apps. Because these weren't just small departmental workloads anymore that, hey, if something were to happen, the event plans got out early. This was the critical business IP of the company now running on these SaaS apps. And so basic scenarios like employee onboarding and offboarding to these SaaS apps, making sure that employees who joined the company could get access, that if the employee departed, that they were able to terminate that access in a quick and efficient way, and that ultimately they were able to centralize kind of the access to these SaaS apps within the company network. And so that created a bunch of challenges for these companies, because in order to federate SaaS login to your kind of centralized AD infrastructure, it would require you to open up holes in your firewall and to basically federate that SaaS app login back into your Active Directory. And so IT teams now that were managing a portfolio of traditional apps and virtual apps now have this responsibility to also manage this portfolio of SaaS apps. And now, not only are they doing their daily work on their current app infrastructure, they have this whole new set of challenges to manage. And that included, certificates. So every SaaS app that you needed to federate into your environment, you had to have a certificate. You had to put that in your ADFS server. You had to make sure the cert was up in the SaaS app, and that, when they expire, you're keeping them up to date. Otherwise, the users had an outage. They had to manage identity, making sure that users could get access to the apps, that when they logged in, it was using the right username and password, and all the other, multi-factor and other type of identity security items that are needed. So this became a major problem as the number of these apps started to scale. It's tenable to do it for a handful of apps. It's a bit of a pain, it's more work for that team, but it got done. And I think a lot of us have experience with ADFS and SAML and Federation and making all that work. But the challenge is that organizations don't have just a few apps. They have a lot of apps. And we heard at the keynote that the average customer at Citrix has over 500 applications that they're managing. And this is a snippet from a really great study that Okta does every year called Business at Work. And if you haven't had the opportunity to read this study, it's super accessible. Just Google Okta Business at Work. It's presented in a really fun to read format, very kind of casual language, great data and charts. And they've been running this study year over year as their business grows. And they have great visibility and data into the growth of apps. And to distill it down, as SaaS permeates the workplace, the number of apps is growing. We are not replacing traditional apps with a SaaS app on a one-to-one basis. And in fact, at the keynote, they mentioned that the analysts predict that these legacy apps, as old as they are super sticky, and we're expected to stay around for 4 to 5 years or more. Meanwhile, SaaS apps are coming into the workspace, nailing those niche use cases, creating better ways for employees to work. There's a ton of demand from employees to have these SaaS apps. And so the total number of apps in your portfolio is just going up and to the right. And so what are we going to do about all these apps? Well, we're going to bring them together with the Citrix Workspace. So all these apps created this opportunity and challenge around identity. And Okta was one of the first to recognize this problem, and boy, did they capitalize on it. And so what what's done with identity as a service or identity clouds like Okta is they change the approach of how users are connecting and federating into these SaaS apps. So instead of routing all this federation traffic through holes in your firewall and managing these certificates back down into your central AD, instead you set up a one-way sync securely, one-way outbound from your enterprise AD environment up into the identity clouds like Okta. And so that solves a ton of challenges for these administrators. It's secure. There's less things to be managing, because now you just have to keep your directory sync agent healthy, which these companies have done a great job making that easy and resilient, high quality. And you don't have these inbound connections coming into your data center anymore. And so now you've got this rally point up in the cloud where SaaS apps can plug and play with your company identity and make it really easy to onboard and offboard these SaaS apps. So adding another SaaS app to your portfolio for a department or for an employee use case becomes very simple and fast. And Okta and the likes of these identity providers can add a ton of value in that experience, whether it's security with multi-factor authentication or analytics about what's being used and how it's being used. So very powerful concept, and definitely solve that problem around SaaS inbound into your network. So I think that's a good way to think about, Citrix Cloud and the Workspace is another SaaS app, and we're plugging and playing with Okta just like a lot of the other SaaS vendors out there. All right, so that's a good setup to kind of what got us here and why Okta and Citrix is such a great partnership. And instead of kind of running through some slides about what we're doing, I'd like to just go ahead and walk through a demo of how easy it is to set up Okta Identity Cloud with Citrix Cloud Workspace. So I'm going to switch over here to demo and walk through that process. Give me a minute. Okay, sorry. Oh, jeez. All right, there we go. So here I am logged into Citrix Cloud in my customer. And the first place I'm going to go to is Identity and Access Management. So if I go up here to our menu, and I go to Identity and Access Management, this is where we manage the identity providers that you can connect to Citrix Cloud. And so as you can see, we've got a number of different identity providers we support. I'm actually got some of our tech preview stuff enabled here, but I've got Okta here on my list. And so if I go ahead and connect to Okta, it's going to prompt me here with a very simple experience. So I have a few fields that I need to put in order to connect Okta to Citrix Cloud. So let's go through that process. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my Okta Administrator UI. And so here I go. I'm going to actually log in as my colleague, Oscar. And so I'm logging into my Okta account as an Okta Administrator at this point. And one of the things that we need to do is create an application on the Okta side that's going to enable this communication back and forth from Citrix Cloud to the Okta Identity Cloud. And so I'll go ahead and add this new, I already have this set up, but it's so easy, I'm just going to do this from scratch right now. So I'm going to create a new app. And our identity platform is built on open standards, and we use a lot of OpenID Connect in the Citrix Identity Platform. So I'm going to create an OpenID Connect application here in Okta. So I'll go ahead and create that. And I'll call this the Synergy demo. I don't need a logo. And this information about the login redirect I have here. This is information that Citrix provides, but it's pretty straightforward. So let me copy and paste this. Put that in. We have a logout as well, which this is actually my workspace URL. So this is the public URL that my end users access to hit their workspace. So I'll create that. That was pretty easy. And actually, I need to turn on some of these grant types, so I'll just quickly edit this app. I'll scroll down, I'm going to hit this, and I'm going to add these two. And I'll go ahead and save. OK, so if I go back to Citrix Cloud here, it's asking me for my Okta URL. So in order for me to get that, that's actually my account name. So I can grab it from here. So it'll be easier for me to cut and paste. So if I just go here, I'll just grab this. Move this over. OK, so that was pretty straightforward. I'll go back into my application settings. The other thing it asked me for was some of these, this client information. This is basically unique to this application that I created. So I'll cut and paste this in here. Bear with me. And then my key, which I won't be sharing with the audience, but we can still cut and paste it securely. And so there's one more thing that I need. I need to get my API token. So that's also very easy to do within the Okta admin UI. And so I'll go to Security, API. And I'll go ahead and just create a new token. Call it my Synergy demo token. I'll create that. And I'm going to grab this on my clipboard and bring it over here and paste it in. OK? So that's it. And I'm going to go ahead and test that, see if it worked. Cool. So Okta has now been connected to my Citrix Cloud account. And I've got that application on the Okta side that knows how to talk to Citrix Cloud securely. And I'm good to take my next step. Now, at this point, I've basically just wired up the Okta account to my Citrix Cloud account. I haven't changed the behavior of my workspace to move the authentication to Okta instead of, say, AD or Azure AD. And so let's go through that step now. So to configure the workspace to use Okta, I'm going to go into my Workspace Configuration. So here's Workspace Configuration. And I have an authentication tab here to set my authentication preference. And you can see here that Okta is an option on my list. I will click that. That's going to kind of warn me that this will impact end users. They'll now need to log in through Okta, which I fully understand and recognize. So I'm going to go ahead and save that. And in a matter of minutes, our workspace will now be configured for Okta login. And if I wanted to change that back, I can just go into Workspace Config and change it back. So that was a good demo there of, now I'm done. Now, basically, my workspace is up and running with Okta, and that was fully from scratch there, no smoke and mirrors. And that process is only going to get easier as our collaboration and partnership goes on. So that was the admin side. Let's quickly switch gears over to the end user experience. And so I'm going to go ahead and open a new tab here and open up my workspace. So I'll log in here, and now I should be presented with Okta, and I am. Oh, okay, so I forgot to tell you guys that actually I had enabled Okta multi-factor authentication to push to my phone. And so, oops, that's my stopwatch. But I haven't sent the push yet from Okta, so I have my finger on the trigger here. And so I'm going to send the push to my phone. And at the same time, I'm going to kind of show you guys what that experience looks like. So I'll send the push to my phone. Did that. And now I'm going to play this little video here to show you what I see here. So it's for real. All right, so it's really cool, this experience from Okta. It tells you exactly who's logging in, what time they're logging in, where, and the IP address, and from what browser. And so I'll go ahead and approve it on my phone. And now if I go back to my workspace experience, so that my phone pushed it. Now I'm logging in to my workspace. Give that a second to work. So really cool, and you can activate all sorts of those MFA features that Okta has available on your workspace by just going into your Okta admin portal and configuring them. So here I am in my workspace. I've logged in using my Okta credential, and I'm going to go ahead and launch this desktop. It's a virtual desktop, so go ahead and launch that. Give it a minute. Here I'm running this. This is a pre-release code in our staging deployment, actually, so it's just on the verge of going into production, and pretty soon we'll be making this Okta IDP integration available for preview. So there I landed in my virtual desktop. And notice it was all single sign-on, right? That's important. I think that's obvious today that we expect single sign-on, but it was good that we didn't get prompted for some Windows username and password, right? Because I am running in an interactive Windows session and context of my user right now, where I can get all the great features of Windows profiles and all that cool stuff. Great. So that was that admin setup from top to bottom, and then the end user experience. So really great that that went smoothly. All right, so now I'm going to switch back to some slideware and just review kind of what we saw there. So in the end user experience, this kind of represents the setup that I had in the demo and what we saw. So I'll start at the bottom right here with the resource location, which basically represents what the customer owns and operates, and that can live in your data center, in a colo, or in a public cloud, but it's basically something that the customer is responsible for managing in a Citrix Cloud solution. We call it a resource location. And most of the time, there's an Active Directory sitting there in the customer environment with lots of identities in it. And the way that we set up our demo was that we had the Okta AD agent connected to, deployed in that resource location. That's a piece of software that Okta provides. It synchronizes the identity from Active Directory, the users, the groups, and there's tons of different configuration options of what you want to sync up, what properties, what groups. And so we've synced our users up into the Okta Identity Cloud. And then as an end user, I logged into that workspace, and the workspace is connected to the Citrix Identity Platform, which allowed that federation into Okta, which landed me in my workspace. And so I wanted to just take a quick second here on the Citrix Identity Platform and kind of make two key points. The first point I want to make is about the Citrix Identity strategy. And so Citrix, again, has this cloud strategy of customer choice. And that includes cloud compute with public clouds. That also includes identity cloud providers like Okta, Google ID, Azure AD, Ping, you name it. There's a bunch of them out there that are IDPs today. They provide a lot of different features and value. And Citrix is not looking to go head-to-head with these identity clouds. We are looking to embrace them, and again, let the customer choose what identity strategy and approach works for them, and we'll make that work in the workspace. So I just wanted to be really clear on that. The second point I wanted to make about the Citrix Identity Platform is what its role is in the Citrix portfolio. And so we have lots of different products and services in Citrix Cloud. And if we had to when we added support for Okta, if we had to go to each one of those products and services and said, hey, we're launching Okta next month, you guys have to support it. Endpoint management, you have to support it. Gateway service, you have to support it. Virtual apps and desktops, you have to support it. Content, you have to support it. That's going to be a really tough exercise for us to add these IDPs and be able to come out and say, hey, Citrix Cloud supports Okta. The Workspace supports Okta. And it works for all those use cases. So what the Identity Platform does is it provides a common way for Citrix products to interact and engage on identity. And so all of our Citrix products and services know how to use this universal token and the various claims and technical detail that the Identity Platform provides. And then the Identity Platform connects and integrates with these various identity providers, whether it be Okta, Azure AD, or Google ID. Some of these in the future, some of them are supported today. And so that kind of translation between these different identity providers to all the Citrix products is what enables us to build out the support of these world-class identity clouds without having to go run down our entire portfolio and make all those changes. And so I'm really excited over the last couple of years that we've built this foundation based on a lot of these OpenID Connect standards to enable this rapid acceleration of our IDP support and to enable use cases like bring your own SAML or OpenID Connect, where we can have a lot of flexibility for the identity solutions that we support in the future without having to go and change all of our products for each one. So it's a really powerful construct for us at Citrix, and we're really proud of this identity platform that we've built. The other piece that I wanted to quickly touch on is FAS, or Federated Authentication Services. And so in that end user demo, you saw that we logged into that virtual desktop, and we weren't presented with a Windows username and password. There's only two ways to log into Windows as an interactive user session. You can have a username and password and enter it, and you're in, or you can use a smart card virtual certificate. And we're not in the business of handling username and password credentials. That's not something we want to do. And passwords are going away, right? So everyone's talking about passwordless. So there's one approach that we do use through FAS, which is to use that smart card approach. And so when I logged into that workspace using Okta, eventually that launch came through a gateway and needed to land into one of these VDA Windows sessions. And so in that demo, we had FAS deployed in that resource location to do that translation from the Okta identity token and claim into that Windows smart card certificate to be able to get that user into that session. So it's really cool technology. And it's actually technology that we've had for a while in our on-prem portfolio. We have a lot of big customers who are already today running a on-prem storefront with a NetScaler connected to Radius and some advanced identity, MFA, Symantec, Duo, you name it. And today on-prem, they're federating out to another identity provider, identity solution, and using FAS to do that. And we've now augmented that technology for cloud. So as the workspace is running in the cloud, we can do the same thing to get that single sign-on. So a couple really cool pieces of technology. And so Brian, I know that these are exciting Citrix technologies, but I know you guys are hard at work at Okta working on a bunch of cool stuff too. So I thought maybe you'd take the opportunity to tell us a little bit more about Okta Identity Cloud.
Yeah, thank you. And way to go with the live demo. That was awesome.
All right, thank you.
It's a lost art. We didn't mind being my button guy? Oh, is this one working? Yeah. All right, cool. And thanks for the opportunity to be here with you. So how many Okta customers in the audience? I thought this might be a slightly self-selecting audience. Okay, well then I guess you guys are more going to be grading me on how I talk about Okta as opposed to learning from me, because there are a lot of you. And I'll go through it pretty quickly, but the whole intent here is to talk about the Okta Identity Cloud underneath a workspace and how that comes together in a complete way, and therefore what is opportunities, some that we've already tackled and some that we have in the future between Citrix and Okta. Now, single sign-on, a lot of people associate that with Okta, but single sign-on is a feature. It's an important feature from a user experience perspective. It's important to a lot of IT admins from a security perspective, but it's a feature. And so what we're really doing here, as Daniel talked about, is hooking up their identity functionality with ours, so you're getting access to the full Okta catalog through that Citrix experience with Citrix Cloud. We also have our universal directory at Okta, which we use to abstract the directory infrastructure within an organization. If you've got active directories all over the world, or you do a bunch of M&A, and therefore you bring on a company that has another forest and another version, we abstract all of that, and we bring your users into a common directory in the cloud that allows you to serve up services to those users. Adaptive MFA, and this is a pretty important one to us. When people talk about passwordless, this fits into this strategy. And it really, see, people talk about 2FA, but it might be one factor, it might be two, it might be three. Our goal is to make that up to you and to make factors, including username and password, building blocks that you can use within our authentication pipeline. And so you may have user groups that have biometrics, and biometrics is fine with you, and you're not going to step up. You may have others that are doing different things, with that. and they use username and password, and therefore they're using their RSA tokens, and then you retire those and you go to YubiKeys with your engineers. It's completely up to you. We have a factor that was demonstrated, but we're sort of factor agnostic. Our goal is to make it so you can bring those pieces of technology, just like you bring your apps, to the party and organize them the way that you want. Lifecycle management, this is the one that I think is particularly powerful in the context of the workspace, because what we're doing under the covers in our identity platform is when someone joins the company, the goal is to take that identity, maybe you take it out of Workday, your HR system, a flag switches at midnight because someone's joining at 8 o'clock the next morning. They come over into Okta, we put them in Active Directory because they need access to certain resources that are connected there. We put them in Salesforce because they're in sales, and they get Concur and they get whatever else. We create their accounts in all those downstream systems, so when you log into the workspace, there they are, right? That's the goal. And then when that user leaves, we deprovision them from all that stuff as well. And that's a huge compliance and, it's IT cost, time savings, but it's huge around compliance reporting as well. Ensuring you don't have accounts that are out there where users leaving your company still have access to. So that plays really nicely, and we've got some future things we can do together to connect them more deeply in the workspace. And then the last thing, that we do, and this is less around the workspace, but just to give you a little insight into where we're going, is we're going to different types of resources beyond applications. So we already support APIs. You can use the same role-based access control model or user-centric model to secure the APIs that you're building for your own custom applications or for composite applications that you're building. And we also have server access management now because we're getting into the DevOps space, and we want to protect your servers and we want to protect your API endpoints. So we're trying to give you this cloud framework to to basically provide identity to all the resources of your business. And then lastly, what we take very seriously is building this as quickly as we can. I mean, this is the power of Okta, is bring whatever you want to the party. Now, there are more than 6,000 applications in the world, so we have work to do. Well, we have 6,001 as of today. But we keep building this out, and this is important to us, and this is not just apps. This is the CASBs of the world and the endpoint security providers and the SIMs. I mean, it's all about connecting into your IT fabric so that Okta can play a more meaningful role in your business. Thank you.
Great. That's a lot of apps. We both have lots of apps in our world. So I wanted to talk a little bit about how we might bring that big app portfolio that Okta supports and all these SaaS apps of the world into the workspace, because there's a user challenge out there today, right? So, and a lot of us might have this experience at work where, hey, I log into Okta, they have a view of all your different apps that after you've authenticated once, you can click any of them and single sign onto those. And that's great. And a lot of people are accessing all their SaaS estate through that experience. But then the user has to go somewhere else to launch all their other line of business apps, all these traditional sticky legacy apps or non-SaaS apps. And so they're over in Citrix Storefront or Citrix Workspace launching those apps. And so really the end game is to bring all these together into one experience, one set of policy control and security and experience for the end user. And so we are heading in that direction with our collaboration and partnership with Okta, and I wanted to show a little bit of prototype that we put together for Synergy to show that vision and how those app worlds are coming together in Citrix Workspace. So the screenshot here on the right is, again, that workspace configuration view that we were in earlier as I changed that authentication tab over to Okta to configure how I wanted users to authenticate into my workspace. But another thing that I can do within that workspace experience is control the service integrations or what is showing up for the users in that workspace. And so today, we have a bunch of service integrations, or you might hear the Citrix teams calling them feeds, coming into Workspace, and those are the different services that we provide. So you can turn on or off your content feed in your workspace to determine if you want end users to have that content experience or not. And of course, we have a virtual app and desktop feed. We have a mobility app feed. We have our own SaaS app feed that we can bring in. But I think the future for us at Citrix is really embracing this ecosystem around us and these best-in-class identity clouds and other solutions. And so with that, we would introduce a third-party integrations tab within that experience. And here in this screenshot, you could see where we would have Okta as one of those. And since I've already done the work within that identity and access management experience to connect my Citrix Cloud account to my Okta account, all I have to do then is go in and flip on this feed to say, yeah, I'd like to see the apps too. So I don't have a live demo of this yet because it was a little too prototypey for a PM like me to get through, but we do have a recorded video that our engineering team put together, and so I'll play that and I'll just kind of talk over it. So I'm in the Okta admin UI right now, and I'm going to go to the applications. You know, we didn't do all 6,000, but we did 4 of them, plug and play, super easy. So we turned on these 4 apps in Okta, and I actually delivered 3 out of the 4 to my end users. And so when I flip over to the workspace here, you can see 3 of those Okta SaaS apps that are in there already. We've got Concur, Workday, and I guess Feedly. And so Salesforce wasn't in there, in case you didn't catch that. So now I'm going to go ahead and assign Salesforce to my users. I'll go ahead and do that assignment right here in Okta. I'll assign it to everyone just to keep things simple. And when I save that, if I go back to my workspace and I refresh that, we should see that Salesforce app come in. And so give this a minute to work. It's thinking, but as you can see, this is a great way that if you have this app portfolio you're already managing through Okta and doing different assignment or access control there, you can bring those apps in. And so here it came back. Salesforce is now there, and if we go ahead and click that and launch it, it's going to have all the expected behavior that we desire, which is single sign-on, of course. But then the other cool thing is that if you have other app-specific policies or experiences set up on the Okta side, you can get the benefit of those as well. So if you wanted to, prompt an additional challenge for that app, et cetera, you can go ahead and do that. So I think that, it's a quick demo, but I think it's a great vision to bring all those apps together into the workspace. All right, so, at the beginning of the presentation, I talked about kind of this point of no return, and I think, we're heading there with the digital workspace, right? And so all this cool stuff is cloud only. There's no on-prem version of this workspace experience integrated with Okta. We have flown past that point with our Citrix strategy and really the capabilities of being able to do all these interesting things securely. It's just too hard for software companies today to create different versions of this software, ship it on-prem, support all the different permutations and environments that it could be deployed in. This can only be achieved really in this new cloud world. And so we are there with the digital workspace on that point of no return. The cloud is where these experiences are going to happen and be secured for the end user. The other thing that is important to remember about the workspace is that we're bringing all this stuff together. So of course you have that unified access, all the different apps, all the different content and data, the different mobility experiences, being able to access this from different form factors and different devices to really enable the way that users want to work. So I think that all makes sense, and I think when we look at making the workspace more intelligent, like we talked about in the keynote, it's a really great fit and direction because there's just a lot of apps and a lot of things coming into this workspace, and there's really no end in sight to the growing amount of apps. And we talked in the keynote about how a lot of these apps are really powerful, but often users only need just a little bit of use case of that Concur or that Salesforce. Like, I'm a really good example. I have Salesforce, but I don't manage pipeline. I don't do all the things that a sales guy do. I go in there to read and understand customer support tickets. That's my only real use case that I use Salesforce on a lot is understanding and engaging on support tickets and also requests for enhancements from the sales team, which is also a very popular activity for me in Salesforce. But I think that's a good example of a super powerful SaaS app where I'm only getting about 10% or less of that use case. And as we head towards the intelligent workspace, we're going to need to help the users pare down and do more than just having a launch point into single sign-on, right? Because you can launch out to all these different apps, but at some point, that's going to start impacting your productivity. And we're already there today. And so with the feed that we're building in the Intelligent Workspace and the ability to kind of have that micro app framework and transaction to do those small tasks quickly in the workspace is a really great way to drive that productivity and that experience that users want out of the next generation workspace. And so at this time, I'd like to invite anyone to come up and ask us some Q&A. We've got about 5 minutes left. And if you guys are taking a minute to get your questions in line, I can start one off for Brian. And so, Brian, it's been really great working with you on the partnership and getting the session ready. And it's clear that you live SaaS and identity day in, day out. And it's probably too early to declare victory on that space, especially for our Citrix and Okta integration that we're working on. But what do you see as that next frontier that we're going after?
Well, for us specifically, we used to struggle a little bit with the Okta as SSO. Our next hill is Okta as SaaS, because lots of our customers we are working with on-prem, but that's something where we're expanding. I'll give you a great example. We have a great integration with NetScaler that allows us to traverse the firewall, use protocol translation from the NetScaler side, and get people into application services that are behind the firewall. But that hybrid space and giving people the opportunity to use Okta regardless of where those workloads are running is something that we continue to innovate on and want to do better and more often.
Cool. Any questions out there from the audience? Sure. When will we have Okta IDP support in Workspace? Oh, you don't see it? Oh. Well, you'll have to talk to us afterwards. So we are now going to a private tech preview very soon. So I'll just quickly explain kind of our rollout strategy in Citrix Cloud. So we complete the code, we roll it out to production, and we don't turn it on for all the customers. We invite early adopters to do what we call our private tech preview. You're all invited. So if you have a business card or an email address, I can take that, write Okta on it, and I can connect it to a team member, Oscar, on my team who is leading the preview. And when we roll that code from staging what we saw today into production in the coming weeks, we'll shoot you a communication and we can enable it on your account and you can try it out, and we definitely would love your feedback. Bang on it, make it work, give us the feedback to make sure we're hardening that. Once we're getting the right amount of feedback and usage on that private preview, we graduate to what we call a public tech preview, which means that it's going to show up in everyone's Citrix Cloud account ready to use, ready to go. And we kind of have a little label on it that says tech preview to indicate that it's new technology and we're still open for feedback as always. And then we graduate out of public tech preview into generally available. So in the coming weeks, we will be going into that private tech preview with the Okta IDP integration, and we're also working hard to get that FAS solution out with the Okta support so that you can work with both of those in that preview state. So again, I'm happy to take your card or your information afterwards, and we can get in touch with you to get you on the preview. Any other questions out there? Is there a requirement for the FAS support? Yeah, so I mean, the requirement is you have to do a little bit of lifting on-prem. You have to have a server and you have to get some, like a CA, a certificate authority, and do some certificate work. But we have documentation for that, and it's manageable. It's not as easy as what I showed in cloud with a couple clicks, but it's on-prem, right? So nothing's as easy on-prem as it is in the cloud. Great. Well, appreciate everyone coming, and if you have any other questions, I'll hang around for a little bit. Thanks a lot.